Hi, this is Jackie Penner with Jacqueline Penner Art, and tonight I just want to share with you some of my favorite paints that I use, and I'm going to give you a list of supplies that anyone should have if they're going to start painting with acrylics at home. And this will also be a similar list of items that you will need if you're planning to take my part in my 5-day painting challenge coming up in June. So a lot of these things you may already have at home, and I'm just going to quickly go through them here. Okay, so the first one, of course, is paint. And I have a bunch of paints laid out here that are different types of brands that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But right now I'm going to talk about specific colors. And these are my preference. I will say, when you're the one doing the painting, you choose the colors. You can choose whatever you want, especially if it's something you have at home. That's nice to do. And yeah, so I would say if you watched my video that I did on a color wheel the other night, these are what I used to make all of my colors in my color wheel. So I used these 3 colors as my primary colors, along with black and white. And these are the colors I use to create most of the tutorials that we're going to be doing in my painting challenge coming up. However, if this is not what you have, don't feel like you have to go directly out and buy exactly this. This color is a little bit important though in my tutorials that I'm doing because I used it in quite a few of them. This is called Quinacridone Magenta. This brand is Deco Art Americana. This is their premium brand. They are the same company that makes these craft paints, and I did get them myself. So if you happen to be going there, that might be something you could look for. And they have a little bit of a thicker consistency than the craft paints do. But if you have craft paint at home and you want to use that, that's great. So these are the 3 colors that I use to create most of the tutorials. That's Quinacridone Magenta, Medium Yellow, and a Turquoise Blue. But if you have something to those, that will work. Also, you would need a black and a white. This is a nice white paint that I use quite a lot. It's made by Artist Loft. This is from Michaels, and it comes in a big liter jug with a pump on it. And it has just a little bit of shine to it. That's one thing about using craft paints, is that they don't have really any shine. There might be a few that do, but as a rule, they don't. They're mostly matte. So if you're getting some white, it might be a good idea to pick up a big one, because that'll be the paint that you go through the most when you're painting, especially when you're getting started. Okay. As for colors, an ultramarine blue is handy to have on hand. That's a very universal blue to use. And I mentioned black and white, as well as a burnt umber. This to me is indispensable, although you could get away with darkening your paint colors with black, but burnt umber adds such a nice warm tone to colors. It has many uses actually. So this is one of my favorite paints. And this particular brand is a golden artist grade paint. It comes in tubes or in jars. And it is a thick consistency. I mean, not super thick, but a little bit like toothpaste, I guess. If you can see that there, it It's actually a little bit like toothpaste. And it is an excellent brand of paint. It is also one of the more expensive brands of paint you can buy, but I would say it's definitely worth it. If that's something you would like to do, is buy artist grade paint. If you happen to have a different brand though for doing my classes, that's just fine, especially getting started. So something else that you might want to pick up if you happen to be out is at the art store or at Michael's is a heavy gel medium gloss. And that's what this is right here. This one is made by Deco Art, and it's a nice small bottle, especially if you haven't used this before. You might want to give it a try with a small tube instead of buying a big one. But this is essentially paint that doesn't have any pigment added to it. And so it's nice to mix into your paints to give them a little bit of extra body. You can even mix this with your craft paints to make them a little thicker. And it will help your paint to have a nice sheen to it if you want, and it will help it to not dry out as fast when you're painting as well. But that is optional. So a few other tools you will need are a pencil, of course, any regular pencil with an eraser will do. Your paint brushes. These particular brushes I have are a little worn out here today. I've been using and abusing these a lot. But this brush, if I rinse it out here, is a nice round brush. It comes to a pretty good point. And it's a size that I use a lot. This is made by Artist Loft, which is from Michael's. It's a size 10. And there's nothing too special about it other than the fact that it comes to a nice point, you know, and the size of it is nice too. It's about 1/4 of an inch thick, I guess, at the widest part of the bristles here. So a brush like that is good. Now, if you happen to have a paintbrush that you think is like this, just give it a little test at home and wet it and see if you can make the bristles come to a point. Because sometimes if they're not a very good quality brush, it looks like it's this type of brush, but it won't actually make a very good point, and that's not going to make painting very fun for you if you can't have a nice point on your brush. And also a small flat brush. So this is pinched together and square on the end. There you go, maybe you can see that. So it's about probably 1/2 inch wide, this one, and that's a very useful brush. We're doing kind of small projects coming up. That's why I have some smaller brushes here. Often I use much bigger brushes, but for a small project, these are good. And this is a Cotman Winsor & Newton number 4 round brush, and it's quite a small brush, nice for doing little detailed areas. So if you have some brushes similar to that, that will be great. And I just want to show you 2 of the black pens that I use a lot. This is a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen in black. This is made with Indian ink. It is waterproof and light fast. So a nice quality artist pen. They come in different thicknesses. This one is an extra small, and I use this a lot. It's got a very fine point on it. Yeah, it is very fine. And this is just a Uniball Deluxe Micro roller ball pen in black, and this is very useful. I use that a lot when I'm doing watercolors or signing things sometimes, and for sketching. And that's something you can get at an office supply store. So other than that, we have some just basic things that we'll need, which are some good scissors, some masking tape, a water container. I'm going to show you a very ugly water container, but it's very useful. So this has been well used. I really like this container because it's nice and big. It has a grip here that I can hold on to it with, and it doesn't spill over because it's got a wide base on it. So if you can find something like that at home, or a yogurt container might work, whatever you can find, but something that has a wide bottom on it is good. Okay, also I do use water in a spritz bottle to refresh my paints, and some paper towel, and then something to put your paint in. So lately I've been saving these because they just get thrown in the garbage anyway, and they are quite nice for mixing paint because they keep your paint separated if you want. And I use the flat part of the tray too. Other than that, you can use anything out of your recycling bin that getting thrown away, or some restaurant food containers. Oh, and I wanted to show you. This is something I do when I'm using a plate with paint on it. I have this container that is just an inexpensive food container. I don't know if I can see the label here. There we go. There you can see the label. So it's just a couple inches tall, and I think it's 10 inches by 10 inches square, and it fits these plates. And I'm opening this up. It's not too pretty, but I've had this paint in here for, I don't know, probably more than a month, and I don't even have, sometimes I put a wet paper towel in the bottom to keep it moist in there, but I don't even have that in there. I just put my paint in, I give it a spritz with my water sprayer, and if I have another plate that can hold paint in it, I can stack that on top and put the lid on. This will stay wet for a long time, and that's a nice way to keep your paint and use it the next time you go to paint, if you have something mixed up that you want to hang on to especially. Okay, so yeah, I also wanted to just mention, for this class I have coming up, we can do this. I went to the store and bought plain white poster paper, and that's what this is. I cut one sheet into 10 of this size, which is just a little bit larger than 5 by 7, so they are 5 1/4 by 7 1/4 inches. And I did that just so that they could fit in a 5 by 7 mat, just in case I painted something I wanted to keep in a mat or a frame. And I got 5 sheets of 5 by 5 inch squares as well as this, from one piece of poster paper, which is of course very inexpensive. So this is a really fun way to paint. You can cut these out and you can just go through a whole bunch of them if you want, and experiment and not feel so precious about what you're painting on. For example, if you're using a canvas that you really like, or you feel like you don't want to mess it up or something. So that's kind of what I'm doing with this class coming up, is that we're going to paint something. If it doesn't turn out, we're going to throw out the paper and do a new one. It's about just making it fun. And so that's what I would recommend using for the class, also because you can cut these out. So today I painted a little succulent like that on a poster paper, and then I cut it out, leaving a little white edge around with my scissors. And you know, this was fun. You could make a greeting card out of this, or you could make it into a banner. You could use it in anywhere you can think of. So that's what we're going to do with this poster paper. But of course, if you have a canvas you want to paint on, or maybe some 5x7 canvas boards, or some MDF boards, some wood, that all works. Like acrylic paint can be painted onto many different surfaces. So feel free to paint on anything you want to try. Okay, now I just want to quickly mention these different brands of paint. So, you know, I guess in terms of quality, we have to know that acrylic craft paint is the lowest on the list in terms of quality, in terms of how much pigment is in it, I should say. You know, it has the least amount of pigment, and it is entirely different than artist quality paint. However, it's very handy. It's very accessible. It's really nice to have bottles already mixed up in colors that you really like. So I do like to keep it around for those reasons, especially if you're just starting out. You probably don't want to go and spend a whole bunch of money on artist quality paint that you don't know if you're going to use it or not. So, you know, craft paint fills the gap on things like that. You know, it just provides a paint that is very accessible, as well as the consistency is good. You know, it's nice to have a paint that is a little bit more fluid sometimes, whereas artist quality paint is usually thicker. Like these are thicker like toothpaste. So, you know, it's a huge subject that Golden has many different types of consistencies of paint, that, and not just these tubes. This is one of their high flow acrylics, and this is almost like an ink. So they have paints that are thinner as well, and they are excellent because they have a lot of pigment in them. But you know, these are the things you can choose from. And then I recently found these that are made by Deco Art that are, you know, just a little bit more money than your regular craft paint bottles, but they have a thicker consistency, and they are a little bit satin finish, probably not as matte finish as these craft paints are. So those are a nice option. Then these are also a nice option. I've used these a lot, especially when I want to paint something that I know I just want to use a lot of paint, and I don't want to think about, am I wasting paint, or was this expensive, or something like that. Then these are great for that. You know, they really go a long way. They have enough pigment that you can use them definitely when you're learning, and you'll get a good result from them. But not as much pigment as a professional quality paint. Then we have these Grumbacher paints. I've used a lot of tubes of these. These are Academy Acrylic, it's called. So I think this is one of their student brand paints, but they are very good quality, and they do have more pigment probably than the Liquitex Basics does. So this is approaching some of the best quality paint. And I also do really like these Winsor & Newton. They have artist colors. You'll notice that, you know, in craft paints, they're called Adrift, and they're called, what's this one? Whispering Turquoise. So those are not artist colors. Those are a blend of something that's been mixed from artist colors, but they're, you know, it's a blended mix. These are artist colors. Permanent Rose is just a beautiful pigment. You know, an artist grade paint, it's going to tell you, is it light fast? Is it made, which pigment is it made from? Is it transparent or opaque? You know, and these are a lot of details that you don't need to know at first, but these are artist quality paints and they're excellent. And this is a permanent magenta. So this is in comparison to this one. This is, you know, Americana Deco Art brand. I don't want to say it's a lesser brand, but it's not quite measuring up to this color. However, it's pretty good. I mean, I don't know how well you can see on the video. They are actually very close, although I know that this one has way more pigment in it than this one does. But the color is very close. Okay, so I think that brings me to the end of what I was going to say about different types of paint. And always just message me if you have a question about which paint to buy. But you know, with I would say the rule of thumb is to just pick colors that you love. That's why I buy these from time to time, because when you're mixing all your own paint colors, you don't have something to look at. Whereas when you have these bottles, you can look at the colors and pick what you want to choose. So that is handy to have colors that you are looking at you in the bottle like that. So buy colors that you love. If you just want to buy what you barely need to get started, you know, just a few to get started, I would get an ultramarine blue, a turquoise, a yellow, in whatever your brand of choice, a quinacridone magenta, or a red if you like a real red, as well as a black and a white, and a burnt umber. This will serve you very well. And get a big bottle of white because you'll need that. And then as you're going along painting, you can pop by the art store and maybe pick up a new one every now and then to add to your collection. So I'm just going to show you again, in case you haven't seen yet, what I've been working on for this 5-day challenge coming up. We have a purple succulent, and I haven't decided quite which ones of these yet are going to be in the class. A green succulent, the same one. We have a Gerbera daisy in purples. A dahlia in coral. A chickadee. A bumblebee. So let me know in the comments if you're watching this, which one is your favorite, which ones you like the best. A peony in purple. And a bird that's called a starling. It's quite dark on the video, but it has all these colors in this painting. And I'm working on a pansy as well, but I haven't painted it yet. That's what it looks like. So Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.